Our Athlete Nation.
Are we rolling?
We are rolling.
Speed.
All right, let's do it.
Shall we? Shall we roll into this episode of the premier podcast in strength and conditioning?
Ing.
Ing. John said ing over there. You just couldn't hear it because we muted his mic and then we turned it back on right now. That's right. Ladies and gentlemen, we have another crew episode today. We are fielding a question from the hotline. The hotline is hot. And open. Tex, would you concur?
Nice cool coffee concurs.
Oh, Tex. Ladies,
Cold coffee's like
iced coffee.
Cold brew. I brew coffee and I put it in the fridge for a day.
Not iced coffee. I take that back. Iced Americano. Like I'll take a quad shot over ice. That's pretty good. I like that.
Yeah,
Now,
not just drinking old coffee and saying that it's cold brew.
Old brew.
what? No good?
No, even if it's 100 degrees out, you still drink hot coffee.
I do not concur.
Dude, it doesn't matter. 100 degrees, I'm still drinking hot coffee.
I do not concur. I do not concur. Ladies and gentlemen, we are fielding a question from a texter. T-E-X-T, not texter.
Another one of these guys?
Yeah.
It must be COVID. They don't want to infect us.
Bro, maybe it's a younger audience. They don't call. They don't pick up the phone and call anymore. They text it in. They text. They slide in DMs.
AIM. Instant messenger.
AIM. They AIM it. They instant message it.
Yeah.
No, you're out of your mind. No one's using AIM.
I know. Remember that was cool, though?
I do remember that was cool. John, you have no clue. You were too busy in the NFL or something.
So whenever I get DMs, I always send them the meme back, like, not today, ISIS. I just send them back, not today, ISIS.
I don't get it.
They're trolling
like
you.
Fake Facebook
they're
friend
fake.
requests?
Oh,
Yeah.
those DMs.
Yeah, or like on...
cherry pop. Hey, I'd like to get to know you.
Yeah, I just send them, not
That's my
today,
line.
ISIS. And then I block them.
Not today,
immediately.
Tex.
That would be great if Tex was...
Oh, yeah. That was the CrossFit Games. Dropped that line on a woman and it didn't work out.
Yeah.
I'd like to
What
get to
line
know
was
you. I'd like to get to know you.
I'd like to get to
well,
know you.
I think the problem was, probably did it a little kind of breathy and pretty close.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Witness. And then
really
shortly
wanna
after
get to
that,
know you.
I think shortly after that, Steve, it was at Anchor Bar and Steve-O got carried out of there.
Yeah, well,
It was epic.
that's usually standard.
Well, this isn't a podcast about war stories, ladies and gentlemen. This is a podcast about answering a question. A texter texted the
You're
hotline.
going to say nobody knows.
I'm stalling because I don't recall what we're doing right now. That hotline number, if you have a question for us, as you guys know, I've been advocating for totally off the wall, non-related, non-movie, non-nutrition, non-strength. I don't care about that. I want to answer some real life questions. I want someone to call in, leave us a message and be like, hey, my girlfriend wants to get a dog. What do you guys think? And then I'd like to answer that. I'd like to answer all the pros and cons of those questions.
What
How
kind
would
of
you
dog?
categorize that question?
No,
A chow.
Ooh, I don't know if I get a chow. Extremely hairy. They shed a lot, and they tend to be very dog aggressive.
Yeah.
But they are good
Or
looking dogs.
maybe, hey, me and my girlfriend are committed to
Life.
getting a dog. What type of dog do you think?
Life
of these
bouncer.
three?
So Luke wants to be Luke Life Bouncer.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
For Power Athlete Nation.
Yeah. And I will own the decision. And if you think it was a bad one,
Send him the dog.
maybe I'll apologize.
Are you saying you want a chow?
a little chow? That's from
They're big. American
come
Psycho.
On, yes.
American
Thank
Psycho.
you.
And he's like, what do you have, a chow?
Little chow.
And
Jared
he's
Leto.
like, no, Paul. And then he just axe murders him. I like to watch that movie at least once a week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I believe it.
Yeah.
So you're watching that once a week. You're watching Full Metal Jacket once a week. You're watching Vision Quest once a week. What else is he watching once a week?
Not heavyweights.
Yeah,
I've
obviously.
not seen Heavyweights
You
yet.
it's kid friendly. It's good.
You have a lot of movie time. I think you're notching up too many movie hours without us. You need to loop us into these movies, these rewatches.
Well, I mean, a lot of times I'm not really watching them. I'm just more thinking about
Playing them in your head.
I'm playing them. When I say I'm watching a movie, I'm actually playing the repeat of, Patrick Bateman just axe murdering people. When he's like, when he plays the whole Phil Collins and he throws it on, he's like, "This is their greatest work," and then he just God, those monologues were good.
Susudio. That should be the theme song this weekend.
Studio.
I'm in. I am a Phil Collins fan. Ladies and gentlemen, the hotline is open. That number to the hotline, 929-464-4640. 929-ING-0. Leave us a message. Be brief. Be bold.
Be gone.
Be gone. But we have another texter today. Big guy, I know you don't like that, but deal with it. So this comes from our guy, Aaron. Aaron, as I like to say.
How does he spell it?
A-A-R-O-N.
Oh, so double A, Ron.
Yeah, Aaron.
Instead of single A, Ron.
Isn't that like a Key and Peele skit?
It is a very great
Yeah, it's
Key
funny.
and Peele skit.
Those guys are great.
They're pretty funny dudes.
Dude, my favorite one is the Obama going down like the reception line, and then like all the white people, he's shaking their hands, but all the black people, he's like, ah, and he like gives them the hug, and then the white people are like, ah, and then he's like,
Shuts
nice to
them
meet
down.
you, nice to meet you, nice to meet you. God, that's
Yeah,
genius.
I was late to the game on that one too. My buddies were like, "You got to watch it." I'm like, I don't need slapstick sketch comedy in my life. But then
Those
they
guys
are
are-
pretty good,
Yeah,
pretty
they're,
good skits.
They're legit.
So this comes from Aaron. I'm 5'11", 216 pounds right now, down from a high of 230 pounds after I did your bulking protocol that ended in April. Holy shit! So I didn't really do the math. So in April, he's lost 15 pounds since April. Okay.
Well, what did he bulk up from? Does it say?
Good question. Does not say. Okay. Holy shit. That bulk worked. Period. That's right, people. That's what we do. I want to bulk again. But this time I am taking your advice from a recent podcast. This might have been 280 or 380, whatever.
Nobody knows.
Text, maybe you can
Nobody knows.
line that up.
Yeah, finish the question.
Okay. From a recent podcast number to be disclosed shortly, which we were talking about, hey, if you want to bulk right, you need to get down to 10 to 12% body fat before giving it a go. I didn't like the way I felt or looked at 230 pounds. I'm at 14.6% body fat right now via a DEXA scan that I took a week ago. So I should need to drop about 10 pounds or so to get down to that 10% mark and start the bulk back again. I have 3 scans left in the 4-pack I bought.
Episode 382,
382.
where we deep dove the bulking protocol.
Yeah. Aaron continues, I would like to hit it hard for 6 weeks. So he's looking for like a 6-week approach. He thinks we'll get him, I'm with you, stand by. 6-week approach to get him down those 10 pounds. I would like to stay, he's a Jack Street follower. We currently are following, our residents are following Trinity.
Did he say what his lean body mass was? Or did he say his body fat percentage?
Yeah, I said currently at 14, so you can do some math here while I finish up.
Yeah.
He's at 14.6 at 216 pounds. So, call Einstein, see if he can get that for us.
Yeah, hold on.
I would like to stay on Jack Street for Trinity and beyond. So Trinity is our current cycle in Jack Street. So he's a Jack Streeter, wants to stay on for the next few weeks. Good choice for the bulk, by the way. He would also like to continue doing some intermittent fasting. It sees him eating his first meal at noon. Then he trains at 1:30 p.m. Then he eats again at 3:30 p.m. And then he eats a big dinner. I'm guessing that's probably like 6, 7, something like that. I'm not done yet, John.
Okay.
I'm not done.
Long story longer.
Long story longer. I suffer from late night sugar / binge cravings. Next, he doesn't drink, or I don't drink caffeine. I do, but this Aaron doesn't. He weaned himself off about a year ago. Is there anything you would tweak in the leaning protocol, which is another nutrition protocol that we provide? Was there anything you would tweak in the leaning protocol to accomplish what I'm trying to do above? Thanks for any advice, Aaron.
First of all, I would caution against removing coffee because I know it's actually the reason I get up in the morning is the thought of like, hey, I'm going to drink coffee today. I can't wait to go to bed and wake up tomorrow. So I do not abide by the weaning yourself off of coffee. I don't think that's necessary. But at 216 pounds at 14.6% body fat, he's 184 pounds of lean muscle, call that 84.46. I don't know if he's going to effectively be able to lose that 10 pounds in 6 weeks and not eat into some of that lean body mass.
I've got a detail, John, because I helped Aaron out about a year ago with some feedback. He's 42 years old.
Okay.
Okay. Sorry. Go on.
Yeah. So he's a little bit older, 42. If he's going to attempt in 6 weeks to lose 10 pounds of body fat and not peel off any of that lean body mass, one, he's going to need to be able to sleep a ton. I would not recommend the intermittent fasting. As we've looked at it for a number of years, it's just a really fancy way to create caloric restriction. I also worry, especially if you have these kind of, late night sugar binges.
That's right.
That what happens, I think, when sometimes people create this kind of feed window and they say, hey, I'm going to starve and I'm going to, fast, I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to give myself the window, it kind of lets them green light themselves mentally into, hey, I'm going to hit this pretty hard with like a sugar binge, because I didn't eat those hours. So what I would do is I would set up the meals in a caloric restriction, and I'd say, hey, if I wake up at 6, I'm going to eat my first meal at 7, and then I'm going to cut out and maybe make my last meal by 4 or 5 in the afternoon, and then be like, I'm going to have the willpower to not do any late night eating.
Yes.
Or if you do feel like that's unattainable, like something I always do is if I eat dinner at 5, I always make sure to keep some calories so I could have like half a cup to a cup of Greek yogurt.
Okay.
And then I'll eat that a little bit later in the night. And then I find that just eating something like, hey, if the kids are, have ice cream cones and I'm eating my Greek yogurt, I don't feel like, hey, I should be eating an ice. I'm kind of eating my stuff too. So I think like having better solutions in place more so than late night sugar binges.
I'm getting a couple other things. Like he's giving up alcohol. He's getting a good amount of sleep too. So he seems to be like pretty dialed in on those spaces. I think also the thing about the early morning, like if you're eating it here, I would venture to bet if he got rid of that fasting window in the morning, right? Like you're saying, eat something in the morning, eat 3 meals before you train. Your training's going to go better.
Yeah.
Like your training's going to go better. Supplement with some creatine, beta alanine, right? Like come in ready to smash it, and you're going to be able to train into a caloric deficit easier and feel better. And then at the end of the day, I just think that you won't get those cravings. And if you do, maybe like, would you recommend for this guy too to have maybe like a fattier meal at night?
Yeah, I mean, kind of what I end up doing is I kind of, shocker, I tend to get all my carbs around my training time. Right. And then over the course of the day, I mean, I basically eat almost no carb. I just eat more like a steak or meat, some fat and protein before I go to bed. The problem, and I think this stems from a little bit of the CrossFit stuff, there's this idea of like suffering is somehow through salvation through suffering. Mm-hmm. That I got to go in and suffer, so I'm going to create like the biggest deficit I can, so I'm going to starve myself, and then I'm going to go in and fucking burn it down, and then I'm going to reward myself, instead of being like, let's be smart here. Like, let's eat a couple meals, let's feel good. I want to go into my training to be able to put max intensity. I don't want to dig myself a hole before I go into the gym.
Right.
So, and I did this for a number of years. I was like, I always feel full when I eat. Just get up earlier. I mean, so we train at 7, which is actually a lot easier now than at 6, because then I just eat at 6. And by the time I roll up on 7, I feel much better.
Yeah.
But I actually noticed the quality of my workouts is dramatically better if I eat a meal opposed from training fasted.
Oh, yeah. For sure. In the leaning protocol, it's going to ask him to start isocaloric, and I think he should.
Yeah.
And if he's training at what time did he say? I already forgot. 1:30. If he's training at 1:30, you also get to select where your training goes relative to your meals. I would just totally flip the paradigm on this IF thing and get 3 meals before your training.
Yeah.
And then follow that as written, because the way it's going to load your carbs earlier in the day and around your training, and then you're going to have a little less carbs at night on that isocaloric, how the sheet will kind of partition your macros out throughout those 4 to 5 meals.
It sounds like he has a problem with self-control, because I've found that people that have self-control issues, the fasting kind of plays into that a little bit, and like almost like makes him feel like, hey, I'm gonna remove this, but I found that on the fasting piece, I was much more when I did the fasting, I was much more, I guess, likely to binge. And I found it easier to stick to my macros and my calories if I ate smaller meals over a course of time. And I know there's not a ton of I know there's research, endless amounts of research that's compared 3 meals versus 6 meals versus 4 meals.
Feeding window versus
it all comes down to the total amount of calories over the course of the day. Yeah. However you get there.
For most healthy people, right? Yeah. Most healthy people who are banging weights, like 3
to 4 meals a day. The age-old bodybuilder of 8 meals a day is just
kind of overkill.
Yeah, and then you end up doing nothing but every 45 minutes just stuffing your face with like little Tupperware containers. Mm-hmm. I think his best approach is to figure out, hey, this is how much protein I'm eating. Am I eating in a caloric restriction? How many meals am I getting? Am I going into my training fed? And for the most part, am I getting enough sleep? Mm-hmm. And then at that point, you just got to try to stay in a caloric deficit and however you get there. I mean,
I'd say also on that, John, like, so if he's trying to pull this 10 pounds of weight loss off in 6 weeks while following Jack Street and the Trinity cycle's coming up, like, that's a lot. You're gonna feel like shit. You're just gonna feel like shit to make that happen.
Well, so he's got to roughly lose a pound in a week.
1.5 pounds a week.
So he's gonna have to be what would that be? Be 35 plus 17. So that'd be 2, 5. So he's gonna have to be 5,200 calories a week in deficit. So if his basal metabolic rate or whatever his daily, kind of maintenance is, he's going to have to subtract, which ends up looking like, over 7 days. So divide that by 7.
He's doing long division over here, people.
49, 3, and 0, and then he's going to go. 4. So he's going to have to, roughly look at, call it 750 calories a day in deficit. So let's say
it's going to be hard to do that training.
Like, okay, so even if you put him at 10 calories per pound of body weight, he's at 2,300 calories, and then you subtract 2,300 from 750. So he's going to be around 50.
God.
Call it 1,500 calories on the safe side, 1,550.
To crash into that.
To crash into it. So I wouldn't, if you wanted to do like 2 725 calorie meals or whatever it looks like, or would it make sense to do, 3 500s?
Can we push this goal out to 10 weeks?
That's what I was kind of getting at. 8 to 10 weeks.
A pound is doable because then you're just basically subtracting 3,500 calories a week.
Yep.
To quote Tom Furman, who was on our podcast years ago, if you can manage a spreadsheet, you can get in shape.
Yep. So I would say 10 weeks, just stretch it to 10 weeks. Like Tex is saying, target that.
And my next question, then what?
I would say, so that's where I think, John, do you think he needs to sit lean for a few weeks before he goes on the bulk though, right?
Yeah,
like he needs 8 weeks at this weight.
I would say, 6-8 weeks just to kind of reset and to prove that he can maintain it.
Yep.
So, I mean, it's always easy to be in shape for one day, but that ability to be able to stay.
That's a great quote for the...
Dude, when we did the 22 Jack Street, I showed up and I had striations in my legs for a day.
Yep.
And
then ate a gallon of ice cream and 10 dozen tacos. No, that was me
that was
the night
you.
Before.
No. Do you remember for my birthday the next day we went to Arc and we ate massive Flintstone tray of meat,
tomahawk
and
thing.
drank I had a Moscow Mule and was made Austin smashed. It was great.
That was sweet. I think that's an important piece there. And then as you get back onto the bulk, homie, realize the training intensity has to change, right? Because he's going to be now, so we're saying 10 weeks plus 6 to 8 weeks, let's say 16 weeks on Jack Street in a very different level of intensity just because he's going to be so in a caloric deficit, right? Sure. Now he still has to train hard, but it's going to feel different than when all of a sudden you start to stair step up on the bulking protocol, towards that 3,800, 4,200 calories. That training has to be harder, or else he's going to end up where he was on the last bulk, which I've done before is if your training doesn't, the shit, you go from a taper to a pair. And I bet you that's what happened. He started to carry more weight in his midsection. And so that's because I think that people just keep their training intensity the same as pre-bulk to 4, 5, 6 weeks into the bulk. They're not ramping it up. That would be my recommendation on that. And if in that middle of the bulk, one thing that we learned, and we put it now in the new workbook that goes out with that bulking protocol, if things start to if your body comp starts to go veer off course, chill and kind of recompose, drop it down, try to diet down a little bit, and then continue after a few weeks, right?
I found when I was trying to put on weight and I was trying to get bigger that I had to match the food with the intensity of in the weight room. So I don't mean volume. I don't mean, intensity in terms of emotionally how hard I was going. The percentages had to go up and I had to train heavier. Right. So all of a sudden, hey, if if I'm trying to put on muscle, it's going to be, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 as I'm working up to, heavy singles. I'm hitting a ton of volume accessory work, but I knew that the poundages had to increase and the intensity and the weights on the bar had to go up. I couldn't do the same training program if all of a sudden I entered the bulk. I had to drive more muscle.
Yeah. Yes. So that was, I guess I'm passionate about that, speaking from experience.
Yeah. Well, you're training originally, man, like when you were in the bulk early, I remember your training was pretty good. And then there was a point at about 8 weeks
Cape
where
Town.
all of a sudden,
St. Patrick's Day,
it fucking, dude, like I remember like we would go in that gym in the 12 and like, I was like, what happened? You're like, I don't know, man. I didn't sleep well.
Yep.
Like it was just like the ability to keep replicating it.
Yeah, I should have, and that's where we were like, oh, we should have just pumped the brakes there. In hindsight, and that's where this, I guess that's what's in the bulking protocol now. So,
well, yeah, because all of a sudden I think you were I don't think you were feeling good, and I think you were feeling stuffed, and you didn't want to train hard. And it's like my training intensity went up. I just saw you kind of going down. And like you're right, you should have been like, I'm off it. I got to get the training intensity back up so that I'm matching the calories with the training.
There was something about going over the Welbourn household and having 25 pancakes and 15 eggs that over like 6 hours, and that was great. So I'm like, why would I give this up? So, Tex, what'd you put syrup on when you were on the bulk?
I didn't have to. I introduced rice, like a stable of rice
Syrup
for the
rice?
first time. But when we had Rob Wolf on the podcast and I was explaining my plateau, because I was 195 to start, got to 205, and that was it for me. And then he recommended like more carbs and then I put in rice for the first time, and now it was
blow up.
Man,
hit the 218.
It's a pretty interesting phenomenon. I mean, the only macronutrient I've seen that really affects body composition is protein. Like I've seen that people that eat a higher protein diet have better composition within like muscle mass than people that don't. But you definitely need carbs to build muscle. So like it's a really interesting piece. Like I would never look at Tom Incledon and I talked about this many times. He's like, you remember back in the 80s, these bodybuilders were eating like 800,000 grams of carbohydrates every single day and they were jacked. And then all of a sudden it got this idea low carb and people started kind of playing with it. And he goes, I don't think that the guys look the same as they used to.
But the problem is, John, do you think that there's outliers? Like in two formats. Format number one where they can thrive off of low carbs. And everybody's like, well, this guy's a fantastic specimen. I'm going to do what he does. Or number two, they fucking lie. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like they're lying about what they're doing.
Yeah.
So people see this stuff and they're like, well, I'm going to try it. And then they just keep hammering it. It's got to work. And then they find themselves in a shitty position.
Like those vegan bodybuilders?
Yeah,
well,
totally.
No way.
Dude, well, the vegan bodybuilder deal is super interesting because those guys are eating like 600 grams of protein a day from like all these different kind of protein sources that are like synthetic, pea protein and hemp protein. Like, all right, dude, so you're taking 400 gram protein shakes a day. Like, why not just eat a more nutrient dense and a better protein, like something animal based?
John, I'm saving the planet. That's what they're thinking. I'm saving the planet because I'm letting animals live. And then you're like, well, what about the carbon footprint to like all this excess processed
Are you talking about the
packaged?
email that we got the other day from the guy that was, remember when we sent out the carnivore shirt?
Yeah.
And he's like, I find this ironic. He actually got back to me.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
Was it good?
Yeah.
I thought you did a pretty good job responding to him.
He's a grindstoner, so I didn't want to totally just fucking nut punch him. But I sent him links. I sent him links to Rob's Sacred Cow and a bunch of information that, like the thing that drives me crazy with this is they make this like no distinction with meat. So you're telling me that pasture raised grass-fed meat that I get from the butcher that cooked on a barbecue is the same as fucking Slim Jim
McDonald's or
a
Slim
McDonald's
Jims.
or some pepperoni that you get at some prepackaged Walmart.
Yeah.
Like they don't make a distinction between that, and that's a real travesty. But I also, when we got into the sustainability piece, and I remember when Rob was on the podcast and we discussed this, there is no equation for sustainability of this planet that doesn't involve ruminants and livestock.
Yeah.
So the problem is, and what these guys don't realize is that if we don't eat them, then people aren't going to invest in raising them, because there's not a business with just having animals on the land and not doing something with them. So you have to raise rudiments and put them into this food chain so that it becomes a viable business to restore our land. These guys are like, well, why can't we just let them roam free? Well, then who's going to take care of them? So you want me to basically abandon my business, just let these animals roam, and then they live this awful, terrible life and they die of old age, which is fine. But there's not a business associated with it. You have to have an equation, or in the equation, there's rudiments and there's livestock that are being raised for production of food to make this thing work. And that's something that they haven't figured out
Stimulate
yet.
the economy. Right.
Well,
yeah.
I mean, Rome Ranch, which is over here in Fredericksburg, when we went out to their place for, what was it, 2 years ago for their Thanksgiving deal, they talked about how the land was completely destroyed. They had basically stripped it of all of its nutrients by growing beans and using all the different tilling and using a ton of pesticides.
Yeah.
They brought in those buffalo and a bunch of ground nesting birds and were able to regenerate in about 3 or 4 years' time all of the land and make it actually dense, and there's different plant and flora and fauna. The whole deal pops up. So there is no equation for sustainability and the success of Mother Earth that doesn't involve livestock.
Which not at all associated with the question. Valuable info nonetheless, I personally feel. I think we've nailed it for Aaron. Like, I think he's going to be really appreciative. So this guy, so I did this, every once in a while we get an email and it's like you push a few lines and ask a few questions and they're like, you get kind of like junk back. And it's just kind of like a hollow exchange. So this dude was actually, like, we had a very fruitful exchange and he was very appreciative. And then he actually responded to the thread that we were on in 2019 to ask us, shoot this one in. I'm like, hit the hotline, baby. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I think we have asked and answered the nuances of that particular individual. If you feel like you're that same guy, that same gal that's looking to lean than bulk, there's some timelines and like some more nuance from the 382 that I think is going to be very important for you. If you have a question, and if your question wasn't answered today and you are sitting on it, you've been squatting, get it, text, because squatting. If you've been squatting on a question for John, friend of the podcast, text my illustrious co-host, or me, call, or maybe all three of us.
Cool. I need to make a cool. No,
we shut your mic off.
Yeah, we shut your mic off. Yeah.
How about now?
Check.
How
If
now?
you have a life balancing question,
I'm in.
if you got a problem that you think is hilarious, or you just have no one to turn to in your immediate social
I'm
circle.
your guy. Do you need help? What you want to know?
You need power athlete.
You have 3 or 4 movies you're trying to pick from? We'll let you know what the pros and cons are of each. Like, you got a weekend ahead of you. You're like, I'm going to watch 2 movies, and here are the 5 I want to select from. What do you think? That's a question we could hammer.
Yeah, no, we'll be good on that. I don't know if we need to get into any political stuff. I don't think we want to answer any of that.
I would second that opinion.
Yeah, let's avoid that.
I concur.
Ladies and gentlemen, here's how you get that question to us. You call the hotline 929-464-4640. That number is 929. And if you look on your phone, it's ING. 464 is ING. And then the 464, ING, and 0. John, what's that ING? What is that? No, what's that?
Ingo.
Oh, we'll get it from there. Now we have the
Ingo, like Ingo B.
No, not Ingo B. We got your ing though. And we're gonna I'm gonna drop that in every time we can.
Yeah.
Yours-
Technology.
On your sample board.
Yeah.
You're just sampling.
What are they?
Call me
it's,
Avicii.
it's not a deep fake, but what do they do when they like take someone's voice and then make them say something?
Superimposed?
He fucking superimposed me. I didn't even know what the fuck superimposed. He's like, crank it up, fucker. The goat from Adam Sandler.
Oh, yeah. That's what I'm doing.
He superimposed
You're
me.
picking up what I'm putting down. Dubbed. Lip sync. Dubbed.
If those of you guys have never gone and listened to Adam Sandler,
That's our recommendation.
They're all going to laugh at you.
Yes.
I don't know if it's on this album, but I was thinking about it today. Noises. Like, who's the scientist? And he's like, all right, we're going to see.
Plutonium. This
like
is the beating of a science teacher.
No, people lifting weights or people having sex.
Yeah.
And then plays recording for people, and they're like, oh, they're definitely lifting weights. Nope. And then the people are screaming, we're definitely having sex.
I like the nighttime is the right time. Hey, dude, just go to the Colt thing. You get a free haircut. I killed my dad. he needed it. Dude, there's
those got to be on YouTube.
Well, it's on Spotify.
Oh, no way.
So
really? Okay.
I got it on Spotify.
Are you going to pay for the membership?
Hell no.
No. At this point, it's become like just a
matter of principle.
Yeah, just a matter of principle. But I played it for my kids. They didn't think it was funny when it was like the Fatty McGee, and they were like, "That's really mean." Don't, Fatty, don't take the stairs.
Well, they're out. They're going to find out what it's like to live out in the wilderness because you're going to spend the night in the woods for that comment.
And the best is, as we're listening to it, I'm dying. My wife's just giving me laser beam vibes. Like, we're not supposed to teach the kids to make fun of fat people. I'm like, well, they're not making fun of Fatty McGee. She's like, they're making fun of Fatty McGee. And then I'm like, let's listen to Tool Booth Willie. That's
age appropriate. We'll
coming out of the booth.
We'll save that, ladies and gentlemen. Go to Spotify. Listen up. Go to Adam Sandler.
$1.25,
Willie.
Willie.
Later.
Then search Power Athlete on Spotify and smash that subscribe button.
That's
Isn't
right.
that the same amount to mother or same amount of money your mother charges for a blowjob? He's like, oh, have another one, you lush.
And there we have it, ladies and gentlemen. That's how we end the show today. Thanks for listening to another episode of the premier podcast in strength and conditioning. Leave a message. Let us know what you want to know. We'll let you know. Until next time. Bye-bye.
Now it's time for you to empower your performance. Head to powerathletehq.com/training to choose from a number of programs to meet your specific performance goals. And if you like to break a mental sweat too, visit academy.powerathletehq.com and become a real stakeholder in you or your athlete's success. Until next time, bye!